Good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning, good people. Yeah, you know what it is. Hard worker, scrappy, unfiltered, and sometimes unhinged football content. Hard to explain, but you know it when you see it. Doing it daily our way. I don't know what you're talking about right now. Redraft and Dynasty Fantasy Football, we got you covered. You know their defense is ranked like 31st in the NFL? NFL draft prospects and rookies? Now you know you in the right place for that.
Absolutely.
All right, then stop saying it. Then we're done. And prop bets with my man Jay Rich.
Count that money, man.
Now wipe the crust out of your eyes, get you a cup of coffee. It's time to wake your ass up with Ray G. You honestly are making absolutely no sense and you sound silly as hell. Good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning, good people. It is Monday, December the 5th, 2022. Y'all decided to wake y'all asses up with Ray G. And for that, appreciate you being in the building, baby. We had a couple of days off last week. Had to celebrate the wife and I's 6th wedding anniversary. So it was a good reset. Hope everybody enjoyed. Had a bunch of football this past weekend. Shout out Fizzle Dollars for the intro song. Appreciate you, Fizzle, for the dope intro. Who we got in the building this morning? Let's see who we got in the building and say good morning to y'all fine folks. Who we got up in here? Who we got? Marlon in the building. Patrick, what's up, Patrick? Johnny, James, Alex C, Patty Mills, Leo, 7 Goat Rings, Eric V in the building. David, all the way from across the pond. What's up with you, David? Main event. Fizzle, yes, in the building, man. It's going to be a good show. Going to be a good show today. Shout out to our sponsor of the show, Prize Picks. Use the promo code WAKEUP right there below. NBA prop bets, World Cup, if you're into that kind of thing. Esports, if you're into that kind of thing. Use the promo code WAKEUP. You put in 100, Prize Picks gives you $100 back as well. And as always, you got to start the morning with a cup of Miscela coffee. Go to MiscelaUSA.com. Use the promo code WAKEUP. Get 15% off of that good coffee. I love it. I'm not going to lie to you. I've already had a cup, so I'm drinking Miscela water this morning. Got up early, got me a good workout in. Feeling good today. Check out the Scott Connors podcast. He finished up his roster construction series over in the Destination Devy feed. I highly recommend you checking out the episode today. He talked about wide receiver thresholds, how to trade, when not to trade, tight ends, running backs, all that good stuff. The entire series was super dope. So shout out to Scott, Destination Dynasty, Eric Vanek's America's Game podcast that drops on Saturday. Just a bunch of dope stuff. And as we approach this season of college football over, right? We've got the bowl game set. We'll get in a little bit of that in a second. NFL season going into week 14. Make sure you tap in to what we're doing over here at Destination Devy, getting you ready for rookie drafts. I'm going to start that scouting process here in the next couple of weeks. So patreon.com/allgas. $7 a month, get you in that Discord community, get you access to our database, get you access to the Discord channel, film sessions, all 22 film, all that good shit. Patreon.com/allgas. But let's talk about it, man. The big news. I mean, for me, for a lot of people, some of the biggest news out there, Coach Prime, Deion Sanders. He is the new coach at Colorado. So Deion Sanders took his talent, or is taking his talents from Jackson State, Mississippi, and he's going to Boulder, Colorado. I think this is a fantastic move for Prime. He's proven it, man. 3 years at Jackson State, 2 SWAC titles, went undefeated this year, shown an ability to pull top recruits in the nation to an HBCU. I think HBCUs in general are in a better place today than they were 3-4 years ago because of Deion Sanders. He's taken a lot of criticism, a lot of hate out there. I'm not buying any of that, man. I think what he did, what he's done for HBCUs, what he's done for, just the fact that recruits can say that I can go to a smaller school and perform should be commended. And I'm excited to see what he does in Boulder over the next couple of years, and understand he ain't going to be there for long. So anybody thinks he's going to be some lifer in Colorado, that is not going to happen. We all know that. He's going to follow the Mel Tucker approach. But speaking of college football, the college football playoffs are set. And I have to say, the committee got it right. I got to give them a round of applause. The college football playoff committee nailed it. I've been saying that I thought they would try to sneak Alabama in, and it was real close. Alabama 5th, right on the outside looking in. But you got Georgia at 1. They absolutely dominated LSU in the SEC title game. Michigan at 2. They dominated the Big Ten title game without Blake Corum, who's out, torn meniscus, had surgery on that. So rest up Blake Corum. Hopefully we get you ready for the 2023 NFL draft process. Number 3, TCU. An overtime loss to Kansas State Max Duggan, if you watch that game, left it all on the field. The Max Duggan experience is a wild one, and I'm excited to watch him in the college football playoff. And then, as always, Ohio State finds a way to back into the college football playoff. They will be matched up against Georgia in the first round of that. My USC Trojans fell to Utah. It was tough to watch that game, but Caleb Williams is still going to win the Heisman Trophy, one of the most talented players in college football. They play Tulane, and just a little disappointed. Thought we'd be able to pull it off, get in the college football playoffs, but we got a lot of NFL news to get to today. Jay Rich, how you doing this morning, my friend?
I'm good, man. I'm good. I wasn't sure if I was ever going to make it on the show.
Yeah, my bad.
No, you're fine. You're fine. You were talking about your college football stuff. I know I'm not no college football expert, but I do my best. I'm excited for Coach Prime. We'll obviously get into that in the news segment, of course. And I am surprised, man. I thought like you, Bama was going to get in. I know 2 losses. And then the other thing that we didn't touch on, because it is a little bit older news, is the playoff is now expanded to 12 teams. Ray, do you want to quickly touch on that? Because I'm not a fan of it, man. I think the 12-team playoff is kind of lame, personally. The top 4 teams will get a bye. The bottom 8 teams will play each other, and then they will play the top 4 teams. So it is a little bit more fair if you do make it into that top 4. But how do you feel about this new 12-team playoff?
I'm okay with it, man. I didn't really have a problem with the 4 team. I thought like an 8 or 12 team eventually would happen. I was okay with 4. Do I really need to see the 9th ranked team like try to get like I don't know.
Now
man.
we're gonna hear should Coastal be in? Should Tulane be in? Like I don't want to hear about that, but
I guess it's fun, right? It's
good for them to get the exposure, I think, which is great.
You could potentially get those Cinderella stories. What if Tulane somehow ends up playing Georgia? And I'll tell you what would happen.
Yeah.
Long time ago, a lot of y'all are probably too young to remember this, but Hawaii and Colt Brennan, they were faced off against Georgia, and they got absolutely destroyed. Like, it wasn't even close. So I think you'll see a lot of that. Cincinnati, Alabama, people clamored for that last year, and Cincinnati got foot put in ass. It just was not, like, they just don't have the horses to compete, but I'm fine with it. Any more college chaos that we get, more games matter, conference championships for some of those teams that do, win their conference championship that aren't in P5, giving them an opportunity, giving just other teams an opportunity. I'm fine with it, man. I mean, I'm okay with it. I was fine with 4, to be honest with you, Jay. But we do have a lot of news to get into, so let's run it right now. Straight facts, baby.
The biggest news in the world of sports. Covered and brought to you by one man, Jordan Richards. This is Straight Facts, presented by Miscela.
All right, Ray, so starting with some of the college football news, we did see that DJ Uiagalelei will be in the transfer portal, which means he will not be declaring for the NFL draft. Not really surprising with how he played this season, but, I thought there was going to be a small chance he did declare. Now he will be back in college, and it will be Cade Klubnik at the helm for Clemson, which is great because we saw some flash from Cade Klubnik this year. DJU obviously not looking so great, so obviously they've had some talks there, and now Cade will be the starting quarterback, and DJU will be going elsewhere. On top of that, Michael Penix Jr. also announced that he will be returning to Washington this season, which was a little bit surprising. There was times when people thought maybe he could be a dark horse for the Heisman, had a pretty good season at Washington, but decided to come back for what will be his 6th season in college. So if you're a quarterback whisperer and you want Michael Penix, he will be pretty old by the time he comes out. But talking about Colorado, it was already announced last night that Travis Hunter will be following Coach Prime over to Colorado. And on top of that, they also got a commit flipped from Texas A&M, Winston Watkins Jr., a 5-star wide receiver out of the IMG Academy in Florida. I believe he's the 4th ranked wide receiver in the class per the 24/7 composite rankings. So a lot of good things already headed to Colorado. And Ray, I'm sure you saw the speech from Coach Prime. He said, I'm coming here and I'm bringing my Louis with me, right? I'm bringing my luggage with me, my Louis luggage. So there will be a lot of players going to Colorado. There'll be a lot of things changing in Colorado, and I'm sure we will see it all happen over the next couple of months.
He's already said Shador's the quarterback.
Yeah, Shador's going to be the quarterback. No surprise there. His son will be the quarterback. And you've talked about how he is a legitimate prospect, so it's not like he's just being given this job or whatever.
No.
He's been great all season long, obviously SWAC titles and stuff, so I'm definitely excited for that. But getting into the NFL news, Ray, there is a lot of injuries, so I will try and keep it pretty quick. Kenneth Walker has an ankle injury. Last night, Pete Carroll said that he doesn't know the extent extent of the injury at this time. I'm sure he'll get an MRI, so we'll see what happens with Kenneth Walker. Lamar Jackson has a knee sprain. Ian Rappaport was on Good Morning Football this morning talking about it. It's week to week right now. They said actually days to weeks, whatever the hell that means, but it seems like he could be held out towards the end of the season. Potentially, just depends on the extent. The problem is that they looked like they were going to be fine for a playoff berth, but now with Tyler Huntley, we'll see how they look, and obviously how Lamar Jackson is. He will get an MRI today to determine the extent of that injury. Jimmy Garapolo out for the season. Another 49ers quarterback broke their foot, and we will have to talk about that a little bit more, but it is Brock Purdy, Mr. Irrelevant from Iowa State, at the helm. Looked great, though. Got to give credit to Brock Purdy for a quarterback who was expected to do absolutely nothing. He took over. He played well. He won the game. He got the ball to Christian McCaffrey and the playmakers, and so it's interesting to see how this system is so quarterback-friendly. Jalen Waddle, not sure what the injury was, but he did leave the game in the middle and did return, finish up the game. So we'll see. It was apparently a leg injury, but we're not sure the extent of that and whether or not it will linger into this week. Aaron Jones was battling a shin injury. We saw a ton of A.J. Dillon. A.J. Dillon had a great game this week, but we'll see if there's anything wrong with Aaron Jones heading into this week. Treylon Burks got smacked in the face, and he has a concussion. So we'll see if he's able to play this week. It was a really bad hit by the safety. Don't need to make those plays. You see a lot of safeties not make them, but this guy decided to do it, and now we'll see what happens with Treylon, whether he can play this week. They don't play till Sunday, but I believe they play the Jaguars this week, and then they come back next week and they play a tougher opponent. It might be the Bengals. No, it wouldn't be the Bengals. But either way, they do have a tough opponent in 2 weeks. This week is the Jaguars, so he may be held out this week. Cortland Sutton, dealing with a hamstring injury, played 23 of 53 snaps. We'll see if he missed any time. Hayden Hurst left with the calf. Isaiah Likely's shoulder injury. Quez Watkins' a shoulder injury. DJ Dallas also left with an ankle injury.
Jeez.
And Matthew Stafford on IR with a spinal cord contusion. So it is the John Wolford show, who actually did look pretty good against the Seahawks. So we'll see what happens, but a ton of injuries, obviously waiting on a lot of MRIs to determine the extent of some of this stuff. But we'll see. Lots of things going on in college and in the NFL. But yeah, a brutal week for injuries this week. On top of a lot of good games. So to credit to the games, there was a lot of good games this weekend, but a lot of injuries that also came with those games. And then we didn't mention Tua either. Small ankle injury, held up the end of the game, but they were losing. But he's supposed to be fine. So no expected implications from Tua this week. Should be fine heading into next week.
Man, really dope to see Deion already pulling 5-star recruits, Travis Hunter following him. It's the culture, man. I think he's going to turn it around. Like, do I think Colorado's going to be some top 10 team in the country? No, but they'll be competitive. I truly have no clue if Deion could coach or not. Apparently, like, his specialty is working on with the DBs, which he's clearly great at.
Go figure.
But he's going to hire a competent staff around him, and he can recruit. He will recruit his ass off. And now, instead of, going to a SWAC school, which there's nothing wrong with that, but there's a difference between the publicity that you get at a Jackson State versus a P5 school. I think he's going to be able to pull in any damn recruit that he wants. So that's going to be exciting. From the NFL, the big one that I want to talk about, Jay, is because we'll talk about Jimmy Garapolo in a second. Two ones, and let's be quick because I want to get into the meat of the show. I think we got a really good show for people today. Have we seen the last of Lamar Jackson in Baltimore? Have we seen the last of Lamar Jackson in Baltimore? Let's say it's a knee sprain, and that's, I don't know, what's that? Like a 4-week injury, something like that? I don't know.
I'd say 2 to 4 weeks, yeah, depending, because he kind of has to heal up, strengthen a little bit. It could be, hopefully it's not MCL. MCL, I think, is usually between 2 to 4 weeks. So I think to answer your question, what worries me, Ray, is if you're the Baltimore Ravens, what is your incentive to let him play? What if his last memory is him getting injured to end the season, you kind of shutting him down to save him from himself? If
you're Baltimore and you don't have any sort of desire or inclination to pay him moving forward, your incentive to play him is we're not gonna pay him anyway, and we're gonna trade him. So let's ride his ass into the dirt, try to make a playoff push, get in there and make something happen. That's your incentive if you're Baltimore. The better question is, what's the incentive that Lamar has to play if he's getting the read that they're not going to pay me? My knee is messed up. I think there's a real world in which we've seen the last of Lamar in Baltimore, and a lot of people, like Tyler Huntley's fine, but let's not be silly. He's no Lamar Jackson. Like, he's not. He's not Lamar Jackson. A lot of people seem to think, they'll be just fine with Tyler Huntley at quarterback, and I don't believe that to be the case. Baltimore has done a horrible job of surrounding Lamar Jackson with weapons. You look at their receiving core, and you look at Devin Duvernay, he's a jag. He's just a guy. DeShaun Jackson, I mean, this isn't 2008, man. This isn't 2010. It's 2022. It's damn near 2023. Djax, Demarcus Robinson, like, get the hell out of here with what they've built around him. If I'm Lamar, I'm like, fuck you. I'm not playing. I'm done. You didn't pay me, and it's going to gear up for a very, very messy offseason, Jay. I think it's going to be super messy. I want to know what's even messier. Is it Baltimore, or is it Matt Stafford, Sean McVay, Aaron Donald, and the Rams? Because you just said it. Spinal. Mike Tyson, spinal. I don't know what this means, but it doesn't sound good, right? It doesn't sound good for a quarterback who's, 34 years old. He's not mobile. The offensive line
and a history of back injuries, right?
The O-line is a mess.
Yeah.
What happens with the Rams? No draft capital. You're paying all these older players. Ramsey is still a good football player. He might not be the best lockdown corner anymore, but I can see a world in which McVay is like, I'm good on this. Matt Stafford retires. Like, if I'm the Rams, the three most valuable assets that you have are Jalen Ramsey, Aaron Donald, Cooper Kupp. It's almost time to just flip those guys and try to acquire some capital and start the rebuild. This feels like a perfect team for DeMeco Ryans. Like, I'm just saying it. He's in division. They see him twice a year. You look at the defense that he's built in San Francisco. It seems like the perfect job for DeMeco Ryans to just transition over from San Francisco and come to LA. Like, it seems like it's setting up for DeMeco. I have no beat on that, but what situation is worse right now, Baltimore or the Rams?
I think it's by far the Rams. At least Baltimore, they've been able to build an offense, build a defense, all these things. And credit to the Rams, they won the Super Bowl, but it's looking bad. It's looking real bad. You talk about Sean McVay potentially retiring. You want to say trading Aaron Donald. Aaron Donald's not going to be traded. He's going to retire too, right? If they're thinking about trading Aaron Donald, they'd be like, nah, I'm good. He already threatened to retire this year. I don't see why he wouldn't retire now. Stafford, like you talked about, the injuries, the back injuries, other potential injuries. He could maybe retire, especially if McVay leaves. And that's the thing. It feels like a mass exodus with the Rams. As all these players are going to leave, and it'll be Jalen Ramsey standing around like Will Smith at the end of Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, wondering where the hell everybody went, right? They could trade him. They could trade Cooper Kupp. But outside of that, I don't know what kind of trade pieces they have. And obviously they have no draft picks, right? So they're not going anywhere fast. And my only concern with DeMeco Ryans going there is that it's easy for him to be the fall guy for a really bad roster, really bad team, because he's going to have nothing around him. And so if he doesn't turn it around in 3 or 4 years, is he viewed as a failed head coach, right? Because he couldn't turn this franchise around, even though they gave him absolutely nothing in support. So that's my only concern there. But yeah, I definitely think that they are in a worse situation. Baltimore could be bad, especially if you're a quarterback, but if you are as a totality of a franchise, I would much rather play for Baltimore than I would for the Rams right now.
All right, Jay, let's run through our ballers of the week real quick. Let's just start it off. Our quarterback baller of the week. Who is it, Jay? It's pretty easy this week. Yeah, Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts, you were muted, but yes, Jalen Hurts. 29 for 39, 380 yards, 3 touchdowns to the air. Didn't he score one on the ground as well?
Yeah.
Yeah, one on the ground as well. I have not checked the odds, Jay. Is he the front runner for NFL MVP right now, Jalen Hurts? I have not checked the lines, but I'm just curious with this performance, man. And, Hurts did this versus a Tennessee team that we think is pretty good. I mean, they're leading the AFC South. They've got a tough run defense. We know that they don't have the best passing defense. But, they made Tennessee look like child's play. They absolutely just blasted them, imposed their will. A.J. Brown running over damn defensive backs. Devontae Smith getting deep and open whenever he wants. Miles Sanders didn't even do it. They didn't even have a ground game, and it didn't matter. Defensively, Derrick Henry, non-existent. Outside of the Treylon Burks catch, I saw something, Jay, that Tennessee only had 3 active wide receivers yesterday. 3. They only had 3 wide receivers What?
It's your boy Chiggy, man. Chiggy every week. Big play Chiggy.
3. And of the 3, Robert Woods is cooked. He's not good anymore. He's not good. Treylon got hurt. So it's just, I think Tennessee is just, this is a team that's just mid. They're just a mid team. They're just, the definition of mid, Tennessee Titans would be right next to that definition. They're good enough to win games, but they're never going to be good enough with Ryan Tannehill, with that offensive philosophy, to be anything other than mid. Jalen Hurts, absolute stud this week. Jay, running back baller of the week. CMC, Christian McCaffrey, 25 touches, 146 yards, a touchdown. You talked about it early. Brock Purdy came in and he said, I'm going to get the ball to my playmakers. I'm not going to make this complicated. There were a lot of concerns about CMC, his injuries. Is he going to be able to handle a workload? 25 touches seems good enough to me, Jay. And then the wide receiver, baller week, Tay Adams.
Yeah.
I mean.
Oh, boy.
How
many weeks is this for him now? 3 or 4 weeks he's been baller of the week?
No bullshit. Every time, like, they cut to the Raiders on red zone, it was Adams. And there was one, he almost had another touchdown in the end zone. He was just running wide open, juking out folks, scoring touchdowns. Devontae Adams still showing that he is one of the best, if not the best wide receiver in the NFL. And then you've got our tight end baller of the week because tight end is a dumpster fire. But at least Greg Dulcich, he was involved in the action. 6 receptions, 85 yards. We still have a couple of tight ends tonight. Maybe Taysom Hill tops him. We don't know. But Greg Dulcich coming along in this horrendous Denver Broncos offense, averaging 11 points per game. The Denver Broncos offense. I read a stat that they are competing for the worst offensive statistical season in Denver Broncos history with their $250 million quarterback, Russell Wilson. Those are our ballers of the week. Jay, let's get into the show, and I want to talk about 2 of the 2020 quarterbacks, Jalen Hurts and Joe Burrow. Both of these guys absolutely on fire right now. Part of me didn't believe that Cincinnati was like a true Super Bowl contender. I know they made it last year, but I'm like, was that more just Cinderella and the stars aligned? No. Joe Burrow's I mean, we've known this, right? And we posed the question last week, what's this ceiling that Justin Herbert has that Joe Burrow doesn't? And I'd say probably 90% of the comments were, Ray, you're crazy. It's Herbert by a landslide. He's the one that you want. He's got the, and every week Joe Burrow just goes out here and just destroys. 25 for 31, 286, 2 touchdowns, and then he gave you 46 yards on the ground. Jamar Chase comes back. He looks like he hadn't missed a beat. 7 for 97, and that was like a pedestrian game. That was just like, that's okay. Like 7 for 97 from anybody else, you're doing backflips in fantasy football, but because Jamar Chase is so great, he's just amazing, you know? And then you look at Jalen Hurts and what he's doing. And Jay, there was a tweet. My boy Mike Lou. Shout out Michael Lou. Shout out my boy Michael Lou.
Let's go.
I dropped a tweet 2 years ago. It was 2020. And I just said that I trusted Jalen Hurts, his development as a passer, more than I did Lamar Jackson. I said that Jalen Hurts is not a better quarterback than Lamar Jackson, but the development of their ability to push the ball downfield and be a consistent throw from the pocket. 2.5 years ago, I said, give me Jalen Hurts in that department. Jay, you should read the comments. I mean, just crucified. They put me to the cross. They stoned me. They burned me. All of that stuff. And then I look today and I'm like, yeah, he looks like he's a better thrower of the football than Lamar Jackson. And maybe that's a byproduct of the Ravens not having weapons around. But these 2 quarterbacks, I mean, the big takeaway here, Jay, is it takes a couple of years for some of these guys, right? Yes, it happened immediately for Joe Burrow and Justin Herbert, where they came into the league and from day one, they were superstars. But you look at that 2020 class that had Tua, that had Jalen Hurts, it's taken them some time. But you look back on that now, and I'm not going to call it historic, right? We're not going to go historic yet. None of them have won Super Bowls. We don't have any all-pros from them yet. But you're potentially staring at an NFL MVP and Jalen Hurts, who was a second-round pick. And you're looking at Tua, who was in MVP conversation up until yesterday. You look back on that class and you're like, damn, dude, that was a great quarterback class, right? If you walked away with one of those 4, you are happy, but you had to show patience with 2 of those guys. You had to show patience with Tua. You had to show patience with Hurts. Just talk to me about Joe Burrow, Jalen Hurts, their performances on Sunday, and what your expectations are for those 2 teams moving towards the playoffs.
So I think the biggest thing here with the Eagles and Jalen Hurts is like, they just, whenever I start to wonder, are they really that franchise? Are they really that team that can go all the way to an NFC Championship game and potentially win that game? They kind of show me again that they can really do that. Like, they really have the dudes to make this happen. that defensive line played great last week against another great running back. You know, the Tennessee offensive line has been struggling a little bit, but they still stepped up, played a great game, forced Tannehill to throw the ball, and he wasn't able to do that. On top of that, A.J. Brown showed why he hates his old team. Big revenge game for him, had a massive game. Like you mentioned, running over that defensive back in the backfield there was pretty funny. But the biggest thing for me with Joe Burrow and Cincinnati is that they win the big games. They, for whatever reason, they continue to show up in these big moments, and that's something we cannot say about Justin Herbert. You know, he's had injuries to his wide receiver core, but they still have the highest paid wide receiver core in all of the NFL. So it's not really their fault that they don't have wide receivers. It's the injuries, all these things, but they're paying guys to perform and they're not doing that. So you can't really say that Jamar Chase and T. Higgins are much better because they're still highly paid weapons in the NFL. I think it just comes down to is that Joe Burrow maybe has an intangible that Justin Herbert just doesn't have right now, and they need to work towards that. Maybe it's Brandon Staley, maybe it's Lombardi, but for whatever reason, I don't know how you feel about Zach Taylor. I'm not the biggest fan, but Burrow consistently gets it done. And I think you can say the same thing about Jalen Hurts. Every time his back is against the wall, he seems to be in trouble, seems to be maybe reeling a little bit. He makes a play like he did against Indy. He balls out like he did this week. And I think they're headed for a number one seed. But the interesting thing now is with Lamar Jackson being hurt, this really opens up things for Cincy to easily win that division, right?
Yes.
And so now I think that affords them a little bit of flexibility with how they play some of these guys. They won't have to press as hard. I don't think they're going to vie for the number one seed, even maybe potentially the number two seed. It's probably still going to be Buffalo or Miami. But Cincy is on track to be great. They're 8-4 right now, one game behind Kansas City. So there is potentially the opportunity for them to get there because obviously they do have the tiebreak now versus Kansas City. So a lot of things happening, but I think both these teams are Super Bowl contenders potentially.
Yes.
And I think the second half for Burrow is interesting. He may just be a second half guy because he's performing at a very high level right now and did the same thing last season.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think they're both legitimate Super Bowl contenders. I don't know who's leading the AFC North right now because Baltimore did come back and win it, in the closing seconds versus Denver. Since he's as dangerous of a team in the AFC as there is, we like to talk about Kansas City and Buffalo being the clear runaway favorites. We like to talk about Miami and what they can do offensively. Miami's problem is on the defensive side of the ball. Like, they can score points. They can't stop anybody from scoring. The fact that Brock Purdy was able to matriculate the ball as easily as he was, that's a problem. Miami's defense needs to shore up. But Cincinnati's right there as a top 3 team in the AFC right now. They're playing complementary defense on football. They're protecting Joe Burrow. He's not getting sacked. I think he was sacked one the only reason he was hit is because he ran around 11 times. But both of these quarterbacks are playing at Pro Bowl, All-Pro, MVP type levels. And I was asked to rank the quarterbacks from the 2022 class: Tua, Hurts, Burrow, and Herbert. Rank them, Jay. In Dynasty, how would you rank those quarterbacks?
With Hurts in there too, that's
yes. He was part of the class. Yes.
Hurts is the one that's tough to rank because he's got to be. I would probably say that Herbert would still be my one, just for fantasy. Like, yeah, I think it's because it's fantasy. I would still roll with Herbert as my one for now. You can make the case for Hurts, obviously. You can make the case for Burrow as well.
Rank them. 1, 2, 3, 4.
I'm gonna go Herbert, Burrow, Hurts, and then Tua last. I think Tua would be my last guy for sure. I think Hurts still be my third. It's close for all 3 of those guys, man. I wouldn't say it's crazy either way. You put Hurts over all those guys? I like Hurts a lot. I think I'd still go with the passing quarterback. I've always kind of been that way.
I would take, in Dynasty right now today, I would go Hurts, Burrow, Herbert, Tua. Hurts, Burrow, Herbert, Tua. That'd be my 4. Tua would be last as well. There's no way I would take Justin Herbert over Joe Burrow or Jalen Hurts. And that doesn't mean they're all tier 1 or BAM tier type quarterbers, right? Like,
they're all tier 2 at this point, right? For sure.
But if I had to pick one, I would pick Jalen Hurts over any of them. If anybody were going to challenge Hurts for me at 1, it'd be Burrow, not Herbert. Okay. It's Hurts and Burrow are my top 2, no doubt, locked in. Herbert at 3, Tua at 4 for me. Good question, Patrick. But ultimately, it just shows how awesome at quarterback classes. I don't think we're going to get the same thing out of 2022, so don't hold your breath for that 3 years down the line. But really quickly, on the Cincinnati side of the ball, it seems like Cincy just has KC's number for whatever reason. Yeah. You talked about this a couple of weeks ago, and let's be really quick, Jay. Isiah Pacheco, why don't they just run him more? I mean, he's being valued right now in KTC. The last I looked, he was like a top 24 running back. when I'm watching him, I'm like, fuck, just give that kid the ball, right? They got him on kick return. What is your realistic expectation for what happens with Pacheco moving forward? I think the
he's
rest
always
of the
going to.
season is going to be huge for him, right? But like Kansas City, commit to the run. That's when they operate at their best, is when they're committed to a running game. They can play action. They can use Mahomes. Like, where are you at with Pacheco and what they're going to do?
I think he's going to be a guy that very unlikely to see more than 15 carries in a week. I think this is just who Kansas City is, right? They're paying Mahomes all this money. They've been this franchise for a few years now. This isn't just like a new thing with them. Ever since they lost Kareem Hunt, they've been transitioning more to a pass game, quick passing game. They use a lot of screens, a lot of action. So it's not necessarily that they don't run the ball enough. It's that they choose rushing alternatives like we've seen in the past for a lot of these teams. I love Pacheco. I think he's a great running back. I saw a comp. Someone was talking about him once, talking about how he does a lot. He moves a lot to not go very far. And Jerick McKinnon's like the exact opposite. Like he moves a lot to not go very far. And Jerick McKinnon does very little to start moving very, very far. But I think the problem is that they have complementary backs. They'll bring guys in. They're always going to be in a rotation, and they just like to keep guys fresh. Outside of that, I don't think Pacheco, outside of like a smash matchup like when he played the Chargers, is going to have a ton of big games. But again, there is some value in a Kansas City Chiefs running back. He scored again this week, which I did not expect. I thought they would definitely deviate from the run being down, but they actually did keep him involved in the game plan. Long term, maybe top 24 running back, but I don't know if I would go much higher than that because I don't know how often he's going to get the ball,
RB2,
right? That's the problem for me.
Like he's an RB2. He's an RB2. That in the right spots can give you RB1 weeks, right? Like
and we need to see him catch passes. He doesn't catch passes right now. He did catch some passes this week, but he's not cutting a ton.
And he was open in the flats a ton, but then Mahomes wants to throw it to MVS, who's going to drop 6 to catch 1, right? Like he's going to set you back 5 steps to put you forward 1 step. I think you're right. I think he's going to be like an RB, like realistically, like ceiling with him. Maybe like 15, like maybe like RB 15. And he's good. Like I think they hit a home run. They found a steal at running back. A guy. What I don't think they're gonna do is just replace him because he's cheap. He cost them like why replace something that costs you nothing anyway? Like that's found money. Like I'm gonna spend this 20 until I have nothing left. Like it's found money. And that's what Isiah Pacheco is. But let's pivot, Jay, to one of the more controversial starts of the season. DeShaun Watson came back, and it was his first game in almost 700 days of football versus the Houston Texans. I was glued to this game for about 8 minutes, and I realized real quick this was going to be an absolute just dump. He looked like a dude that hadn't played football in a long time, Jay. I know he's great. He's a great football player, right? He's not great, but he's a great football player. But he looked like a dude that hadn't played football in a long. I mean, you had put it in the Discord. You're like, he spiked it into the ground. Like literally was trying to throw it downfield and just spiking it at the feet of players. He looked nervous in the pocket. He did make a couple of throws where you're like, okay, there it is. That's the DeShaun. But what was his final stat line? Well, I don't even know what his final stat line was.
I believe he had 130 yards. Hold on, let me pull it up real quickly. It was not good. 12 for 22, 131 yards, and 1 pick, which was a pick in the end zone where he didn't see the safety.
Yeah.
But yeah, Ray, it was not good. It was honestly worse than I even expected.
It was.
But I think that's partially because they tried to throw the ball. Like they were running the ball effectively. Nick Chubb, 4.7 a carry, Kareem Hunt, 6.2 a carry. They could have just ran the ball, but they decided to try and get Watson involved a lot. Like he threw the crosser to DPJ. DPJ was wide open. He better make that throw. Outside of that, though, there wasn't a ton of plays I like to see from Watson. And again, only 12 completions, 22 attempts, 131 yards, QBR of 28.6. Like you mentioned, he looked like a quarterback who hasn't played in a very long time. And to be honest, Ray, I expected him to be bad. Like I did not want to start him this week. I took the under on his passing yards.
You got a lot of shit for that, man. People thought you were crazy taking the under on Watson's yards, man.
Wasn't even close. He was 100 yards under his over-under. So again, it's just he's going to be rusty. You don't necessarily want to start him every week. I think he's got some big games coming up, a lot of divisional games for the Browns. So maybe he can do some things. They are still sort of in a playoff hunt at 5-7. They're not out of it yet, but they got to probably win out. We're going to see. He's going to be rusty. He's going to be bad, but I think that the old Watson, we will see some glimpses of in due time, but it may take some time. I think people need to realize we are expecting to see him do something at the end of this season to give us confidence heading into next season that he will be that QB1 going forward.
Let me just ask you, do you think we're going to, because do you think we're going to see DeShaun Watson before the end of this season, or is it more like he's knocking the rust off and we're really going to see the real Watson next year? And part of me rather that be the case. I'd rather him be kind of shitty for the rest of the year because I think it's still it provide a window to buy him in Dynasty. Like, are you still comfortable right now? You traded for Watson in the league. Can you tell the people what you traded to get Deshaun Watson?
I traded Justin Fields and a first, basically, was the bulk of the trade. And then a few other pieces to kind of make it match value.
But the bulk of it was Fields and a first. Fields and a 23 first to get Deshaun Watson. You still feel good about it?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the bigger thing for me, part of the reason why I made the trade was because Fields is going to be out this week, so I wouldn't have a QB2. And then Watson plays Cincinnati, so he's going to have to come to play in this one, right? They're going to Cincinnati this week, so he's going to have to come to play. And I think we see a lot more from Watson in this one. He'll probably throw the ball 30, 40 times. Again, first game was a feeler game, but this is a real test. If they want to try and make the playoffs, make a push, he's got the Bengals this week, he's got the Ravens next week, and then he's got the Saints, Commanders, and Steelers to close out the season. So I think there will be moments, and Ray, to your point, that Steelers game, if he plays, that's the game we should see him do something. If he's really bad and kind of struggling against that Steelers defense, should be the week that he really goes off, if anything, in this season. So again, right before the season ends, we may see some prime Watson with a 300-yard game, bombing it to receivers, wide open guys running all over the place. So that's kind of where I'm expecting to see the big breakout.
What do you think about Rico's question here? That's the question. What is the real Watson after 2 years away from football? Like we're thinking about, like, and I'm just asking, right? Had he played for 2 years, that's 2 more years, right, of getting better or getting worse. But we're getting better for Deshaun Watson. Like, what is he? 2 years? Like, right now, today, where is he slot in for you Dynasty ranks? Is he in that Kyler, Dak Prescott range, back 12 Dynasty quarterback? Or are you more aggressive and you're like, this is a top 5 dude. Like, I want to acquire him by any means necessary.
I want Watson because of the contract and the commitment to him, kind of for the same reasons we wanted Russell Wilson to start this season, right? The commitment, the contract, he's not going anywhere no matter how bad he plays. For me, he would be in that tier 3. We talk about how we have a tier 2 that's very strong. We love the top 7, top 8 quarterbacks, but tier 3, when you talk about Dak Prescott, Kyler Murray's probably not in that tier as of yet, but he's getting a little closer. But Watson would be right around there for me, right around where I think I'd probably put Trevor Lawrence and, Dak Prescott and some of those guys, because he needs to show me again that he is a tier 2 guy, a tier 1 guy. I wouldn't quite put him in there yet, but yes, I am trying to buy him. I did buy him and I would be trying to buy him. The issue is that if you really believed in him, you should have been trying to buy him before this, right? Maybe now you try and go acquire him, but you should have been trying to buy him when he wasn't playing, when he was injured, when the price was lower. Because even though he didn't play so well, I still think the price has gone up significantly since he obviously got suspended and all those things kind of happened for Watson.
All right, Jay, let's pivot and let's talk about the Jets. And I want to talk about Mike White because Mike White has been, I looked on Google Trends after last Sunday. He was the number 1 trending thing like across the United States was Mike White. Mike White goes out there. Jets lose to the Vikings 22-27. The Vikings were awful. If outside of Dalvin Cook and his volume and touchdown and Justin Jefferson and his receptions and touchdowns, they were all crap. Kirk Cousins was bad. They were all bad. Mike White, you look at the compiling stats, right? What he ended up doing. Ultimately, 31 for 57 pass attempts for Mike White, which is a problem in its own sense. Like, he shouldn't be throwing the ball 57 times. 369 yards. Are you looking at it like, shit, man, he threw for 369. 2 interceptions. He probably could have had like 6 interceptions in that game. He was giving them to the Vikings, right? They just couldn't catch him. But, sacked once, QBR of 23. What do you think happens with this situation? There's nobody out there can seriously believe that Mike White has any future as some dynasty startable asset at court. There's no way in hell, Jay. No way.
You may want to talk to your boy Eric Van Nickel about that.
But does the team turn it back over to Wilson? I don't think that happens this year. I think his punishment is rest of the season benching and then compete for the job next year. I don't, just my gut feeling, like I do think Zach Wilson gets another chance with the Jets. I don't think it's going to happen this year no matter what. Like, I think they are going to, if the season flames out, they'll be like, this is your fault. Like, this is why we had a great defense, but you weren't a leader, and we had to play Mike White, and you caused the team to go up in flames. Like, where are you at with this whole Mike White thing? Let's, just give me some real talk here, man.
So here's the reality, I think, for Zach Wilson and Mike White. Mike White was awful. Like, he threw for a lot of yards, got the ball to Garrett Wilson, that's great, but he wasn't very good. Didn't throw any touchdowns. He did run for a touchdown. One pick that was pretty bad, and then the game-ending pick, but that one I'm not as concerned about because it was at the end of the game. But here's where the situation is interesting, Ray. This week they play the Bills in Buffalo. What do you think the score of that game is going to be? Probably like 50-0 if I'm going to just have a prognosis. They're probably going to lose pretty bad, right? Mike White probably throws 3 to 4 interceptions in this game against Buffalo. So then, Ray, they play at home versus the Lions. So then you have a Lions defense that has been okay at times and bad at others.
Bad.
So maybe
They're bad.
Maybe after this bad loss to Buffalo, you get Zach Wilson come back. He has the Lions, he has the Jaguars, he has the Seahawks, who are fine, and then you close the season with the Dolphins. So he may be able to end the season with about a month of games and play, 4 games, end the season with some confidence. We'll see. But Mike White looks exactly like Joe Flacco. Joe Flacco, every time he came in, he threw the ball 50 times and they'd lose. You'd be excited because he'd get the ball to Garrett Wilson, get the ball to this guy, that guy, whoever, but they weren't winning games because the quarterback wasn't good enough. So I just think I'm curious to see what happens. Yeah, they're saying the Jets beat the Bills. Yeah, I know, I get it. They beat the Bills already. But if Mike White's a quarterback, I don't know if they beat the Bills on the road, people. On the road in Buffalo.
Yeah.
I don't think that's going to happen. Bills probably open up as what?
Josh Allen was horrible that game,
favorites?
too. Josh Allen was, I mean, he's throwing it directly to Jets defenders. Good job, Jets, but I'm not going to be like, oh, they beat them weeks ago, they're going to beat them again. I'm not buying that either. Not buying that again either.
So I think that's the narrative that could play out for Zach Wilson in his favor, and then potentially we do see him again, but we'll see.
Maybe. I think Mike White has to be very, very, very bad versus Buffalo in order for them to make the switch back. I think they're going to punish him for the rest of the season. I don't think it's going to happen, man. Inside that game, Garrett Wilson, though, man, what a budding superstar. 8 for 162, 15 targets for Garrett Wilson. 15. And what's real funny is, remember, Elijah Moore's back. Mike White and back in the shitter for Elijah Moore. 2 for 7. Corey Davis was second on the team in targets. 5 for 85 for old man Corey Davis out there. Jay, but the bigger story from the Jets side of the ball, and I heard Scott talking about it on his podcast today, Zonovan Knight, another strong performance from Bam Knight, showing that he's going to be involved at least for the rest of this season. And I think the realistic sort of outcome for Bam is he shows well enough throughout this season to earn a Gus Edwards type role next year. Because once Breece Hall is ready, there ain't no doubt about it. That's the guy. I mean, that's 70-80% snaps. But we know that players coming back from an ACL injury, it takes them a little bit, right? Like, I'm not expecting Breece to come back in week 1, look like the same guy that we saw, early in his rookie season. It's probably going to take a little bit. But what he has an opportunity to do, Jay, is show that I can play. I'm better than James Robinson. I'm better than Michael Carter. And I can be a competent backup in the NFL. And as we've seen in Dallas, Detroit, if you can just hang around as a backup long enough, you're going to get an opportunity. A.J. Dillon's getting an opportunity. Jamal Williams, opportunity. Isiah Pacheco, backup, opportunity. Tony Pollard, opportunity. Bam Knight looks good. Like, he doesn't just look like, there's some running backs that come in here like, all right, you could tell, like, okay, he had a nice little run there. Malik Davis last night, but that ain't never going to be a thing. What are your thoughts on Bam Knight? And just, if you were able to get him off of waivers, I mean, you cashing out for a third? Are you going to sell Bam Knight for any third rounder? Or is it like, all right, you give me a second, I'll move him? Or do you kind of want to let this situation play out a little bit, use him if you're a contender? What's the right play with Bam Knight right now? Because he's starting to get more and more steam right now, Jay.
So I think you made a really good point there, in that there will be some growing periods for Breece Hall. He's not just going to come in and be the starter right away. He's probably going to have to share a work.
He's going to be the starter right away.
But he's going to have to share a backfield a little bit. He was already doing that as a rookie. He kind of took over. But I think with the ACL injury, and the Jets want to protect their investment a little bit, if you have a Bam Knight that you put little to no investment in, you're probably going to want to use him. Would I buy Bam? People are saying buy Bam. Rose saying buy Bam. I don't know if I would do that. I think that where he's at right now is a great option for anyone who is a contender. You can start him now. This week, we weren't sure how he's going to play up between him, Ty Johnson, and James Robinson. Clearly, Bam Knight is the guy and looked like the best running back in that backfield. But beyond this season, I think you just hold him. Unless someone's going to give me a second round pick for him, I'm probably not going to move him. But if you give me a second, you could talk me into it. I think that's a fine sell because, again, he's not going to go anywhere, right? He's not going to go on a new team. They're not going to trade him. They're going to hold him. Insurance policy, maybe they get rid of Michael Carter in the future and they hold on to Bam Knight. But Breece Hall, Michael Carter, and Bam Knight in a backfield, very solid, very solid. They can lean on that running game, and I think they continue to build things going forward. But I don't know if I would do much with Bam Knight. I think you got to just hold him. You can probably play him for the rest of the year. But outside of that, I don't think I would be trading him for a third, especially. It's just not enough for me.
Yeah. All right. Let's move on to the San Francisco 49ers, which continue to have one of the more interesting storylines at quarterback in the entire NFL. So you talked about it in the news. Jimmy Garapolo broken ankle for Jimmy G? Is that what it was?
Yeah, he broke his ankle.
It looked bad, too. I saw the picture. Ugh.
Well, what Ian Rappaport said was it was multiple fractures in his foot, and there potentially could be ligament damage. So they don't even know the extent of the damage right now. So he does have to get the MRI. We will get that confirmed probably later in the day or a little bit later. He's going to get surgery today, so we should have some idea of what actually happened. But the problem is, Ray, is like we've seen it in basketball. Some of these broken ankle injuries, they take 12 months plus to really recover and heal and all these things. So to break your ankle December 4th, what does his prognosis look like as a quarterback playing for a contract? Obviously, who's going to sign him now? And I know you want to get into that a little bit with some of these guys. Liz Frank fears, it could be a lot of things with Jimmy. Could be a lot of things. We don't even know the extent of the injury right now.
So obviously the number one thing is this is a massive blow to their Super Bowl chances because I did think they were a top 4 team in the NFC with the way that defense is, with how the offense was operating. I was like, that's a top 3, top 4 team in the NFC, no doubt. Philly, I trusted San Francisco more than Minnesota. I think it was like Philly, Dallas, the 49ers for me in my personal power rankings. You can catch me on Bleacher Report every Monday and Thursday on Bleacher Report today, 10 a.m. Central Standard Time. Tap into that Bleacher Report app. But my question, Jay, is what does this do for Trey Lance next season? Just give me your thoughts on Lance and how this impacts him next season.
So you kind of have this in the notes. I don't want to take too much away from what you said, but the bigger thing here is how does Jimmy G get a job that's not in San Francisco, right? That's part of the problem, is that as much as I like Jimmy G, and I think he's a fine quarterback, now he's got a broken ankle, and he could have earned a starting job next season, but now it seems like that's very unlikely. They probably bring him back, and now you have 2 quarterbacks, 2 broken ankles, 1 Mr. Irrelevant. And Ray, if we're being honest, would you rather trust the quarterback with a broken ankle who doesn't run, or would you rather trust the quarterback with a broken ankle who does run? I think that Trey will be the starting quarterback, but I think there are concerns around the league maybe they do bring Jimmy back.
What about the smoke about Tom? My thing is there's going to be the Tom Brady smoke. They're bringing Jimmy Garoppolo back on a 1-year deal. Is Trey Lance the guy? He's going to be, we talk about DeShaun Watson, 2 years removed from football. It'll be Lance 3 years removed from football. And the last time
really played
3 games in 3 years was in an FCS North Dakota State. Like, it's starting to get scary hours with Trey Lance. Patrick, you know I love you. I wholeheartedly disagree. There's no way San Francisco with Brock Purdy is a top 4 NFC team. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I will put an exorbitant amount of money on that they are not a top 4 team with Brock Purdy at quarterback. I know it looked okay last game because the quarterback that they have no game plan for versus a bad defense. Like, okay, let's see how let's see how he looks this week when they have a week of game planning against them. Not with Brock Purdy. They're not a top 4 team in the NFC. Wholeheartedly disagree with that. But I do think that this is just it's setting up for a very messy offseason in San Francisco. We talked about how you saw the quotes from Tua, having a coach believe in you as the guy. I will say it until the day that I leave the earth. I don't believe Kyle Shanahan wanted to draft Trey Lance in the first damn place. I'm not buying it, Jay. So now he hadn't played football in forever. He's got an injury. He was looking kind of, we didn't really know because it was a tsunami game, and then he broke his ankle in the neck. Like, we don't really know what he is, but I know he hadn't played real football in 3 years. And the year that he did, it was at North Dakota State. So I think this is, if I had Lance, I would be, would you just want to just get off of him and not even deal with what could or could not be? Like, where are you at with him? Like, would you rather just trade him?
I mean, we talked about this in the Discord, right?
Would you trade Lance for Kenny Pickett in the 24 first?
Oh, Kenny Pickett. No, Ray.
Would you trade Lance for Kenny Pickett in the I'm trying to give some. If I said, would you trade Lance for Jalen Hurts, everybody would say yes. So I'm trying to give some realistic scenarios. Kenny Pickett in the 24 first or Trey Lance?
I guess it's Pickett in the first, but again, the problem is the upside of what Lance could be. But I think if I have Lance, I'm waiting for training camp to sell him, right? I'm waiting to see him sprinting on the side of the practice field and people to get excited, right? That's what I'm waiting for. I don't think you sell him now. You could buy him if you want, but the buy window's been open forever if you really want to buy him. But yeah, I think you wait, you sell, and then you go from there. I've talked about this a lot in the Discord, especially. I don't want Trey Lance because he hasn't played. Like, we saw how bad Watson's looked. Like, what is Trey Lance going to look like if he doesn't play? And so he's got training camp, he's got a ton of playmakers. All these things are in his favor. Like, I would only disagree with your point on Brock Purdy a little bit because the players are so good. Like, Shanahan can basically be like, Brock Purdy, how about you just do nothing and we'll run the ball with Deebo Samuel and Christian McCaffrey will run screens. Like,
at some point he has to do something. Like,
you
that's
think so,
not going to work. At some point, like, you're right. The premise is, okay, he doesn't have to do anything. Just throw it to, at some point, defenses will dictate you have to do something. And I don't trust him to do anything. I watched Brock Purdy at Iowa State. There was a reason why he was a 7th round pick. And I get there are gems that fall through the crack. I understand that. And I'm not shitting on Purdy, but this is that's a tough ask to put him in this situation as a team that's TTT. They are TTG trained to go right now. The San Francisco 49ers are ready to go. They got a Super Bowl defense. They've got the best defense in the NFL. I mean, they just held the Dolphins. I don't care if Waddle was in or out. They still have Tyreek Hill, Raheem Mostert, Jeff Wilson. I know their offensive line was damaged, but we're talking about Tua being an MVP candidate. I mean, this defense is ready to go. I'm not buying into a half a game of Brock Purdy when I'm not buying it, man. I'm not buying it with San Francisco.
So they had their closing schedule, Ray. Buccaneers at the Seahawks, home versus the Commanders, at the Raiders, versus the Cardinals. So 3 home games for Brock Purdy, 2 road games against Seattle and against the Raiders. How many games do you think he can win of those 5? I think he could probably win 2 or 3.
Who are the home games against?
Home games are versus the Bucs, versus the Commanders, and versus the Cardinals.
I mean, I think the Commanders are going to be tough. I think the Bucs.
Yeah, they're going to be tough. They're going to be tough.
The Bucs.
It's a lot of all those games are tough, right?
They're tough games. Those are tough games.
Yeah.
All he needs to do is win like 2 of them. If he can get 2, if he's the starter, if he can win 2, they're in the playoffs, I believe. He just needs to get 2 of those.
They got to beat Seattle, though. If they beat Seattle, they have a really good shot of winning division. Because right now they're 1 game up on Seattle. Seattle barely got a win versus the Rams this week. But if they beat Seattle on the road, which is a massive ask, they would have a pretty good shot of winning the division, even if they don't necessarily win the rest of the games. So that's kind of the big thing here, is that the Seattle game is the most important game. But to your point, the Raiders game will be tough. The Raiders are playing much better than they were a few weeks ago. Even the Cardinals game at home will probably be tough because the Cardinals, while they're 4-8 right now, they're probably going to want to give hell to Brock Purdy and that defense and offense. So I'm curious what they do with him, but tough schedule. And to your point, they do have 8 wins though, so they're fine for playoffs, but they may only get 10, and that may not be enough to win the division for this season.
The problem, man, the problem is the NFC East is just so good. They're just so good. And then you had the Giants and the Commanders tied yesterday. The Cowboys absolutely smacked the Colts. Jeff Saturday, there's no way he can be the coach next year. No, there's no way. Matt Ryan looks terrible. Jeff Saturday is not equipped for that job. Let's just say that. He is not qualified for that job. Jay, just run through a couple of games that we didn't talk about. Pittsburgh beat Atlanta 19-16. Marcus Mariota looks awful. Justin Fields came back down to earth a little bit. 2 interceptions, 254 passing. He did have a long touchdown run, but outside of the 55-yarder, didn't do much on the ground. The Bears and all that enthusiasm came back a little bit. Aaron Rodgers didn't look 100%. He didn't look very good, but defensively, and then A.J. Dillon, a big game on the ground. Christian Watson scores 2 more touchdowns, 1 on the ground, 1 through the air. Big win for Green Bay. They're not going to do anything playoff-wise, but good win for them. The Detroit Lions, they got back Jamison Williams. Everyone was excited about that, Jay. He didn't do anything. He had 1 target. I mean, I don't know why people were expecting much. ACL. We're not going to get the real J-Mo until next year. So if this provides any opportunity to buy him, I would be doing that, but I think the big takeaway for me, DeAndre Swift got in the action, 14 for 62, a touchdown, 4 catches, 49 yards. And Amon-Ra St. Brown is a wide receiver 1, and for me, he is locked into that tier. I don't care if J-Mo's there or not. Amon-Ra is the one. Like, I'm not buying Jameson Williams as the one in that offense. Amon-Ra has done it every week since he got opportunity as a rookie. He's a locked and loaded wide receiver 1. Bam tier incoming for Amon-Ra St. Brown.
Hey, come on.
It's incoming. I didn't say yet.
You're giving Stone too much hope. I think he's great, right? You talked about he kicked the shit out of the Jaguars. He had 2 touchdowns.
He does.
Even the last
shit out of everybody.
Last touchdown was a little cheap. You know, they run the play fake on the goal line. They're up like 30 points, but good for him, man. He did have a phenomenal game.
Ben Johnson's going to be a coach. The offensive coordinator from the Lions, Ben Johnson, what they do offensively, the schemes and the concepts that they run, it's got Jared Goff looking like a starter. It looks, if I'm Detroit, I don't even know I'm not taking a quarterback at the top of the draft. If Jalen Carter and Will Anderson are there, why on earth would I pass on those guys when Jared Goff is probably just as good as any quarterback that you're going to get over the next 2 to 3 years at the top of the draft? Will Levis, CJ Stroud. I mean, you better pray that they're Jared Goff and can throw for 4,000 yards in a season. So I think Ben Johnson, what he's doing with Detroit offensively is incredible. T-Law gutted it out again. Looked like he tore his knee up. He walks back in. Dude is just tough as nails. I really like how he plays ball. We talked about Baltimore barely beating the Denver Broncos. Offensively, Jay, they are a mess. I don't trust them. Seattle beat the Rams. It was actually a really good game. DK Metcalf, Jalen Ramsey getting into it. You love that when you watch those games. The Giants and the Commanders, 20-20 tie. Daniel Jones was running the ball, throwing the ball, put the team in position. Darius Slayton dropping damn passes in the middle of the field. McLaurin, big game. Can we talk about Brian Robinson again, Jay? Everybody hates him. What does he do every week? 20 carries, 70 to 90 yards every week. Just give B-Rob the ball. Catching. I mean, he's good. I mean, he's good enough. He's good enough.
So annoying, bro. It's not
annoying because he's the guy. It's not even annoying because he's going to get the 20 carries a week. It's not even annoying. You just know it's going to happen. Taylor Heineke is going to be the starting quarterback for the Commanders next year as well, Jay.
Yeah.
And then the Chargers, your boy, Justin Herbert, again, the ceiling so high, such a high ceiling, just like Blake Griffin, that high ceiling. Herbert lost 6-6. The LA Chargers, the Raiders messing up their draft pick. They're 5-7. Derek Carr played solid ball every time he threw to Devontae Adams. And Josh Jacobs, 144 yards and a touchdown on the ground. Jacobs has just been a fantasy monster this season, Jay. But there it is. There's the show. Anything else you want to add before we get out of here?
Alex was actually mentioned James Cook, which is funny because we didn't talk about James Cook because he played on Thursday, right? We didn't do a show on Friday. But Ray, do you think that James Cook could be a thing coming down the final stretch of the season? I believe he outcarried Singletary in this one, caught a few, I think he caught like 6 passes out of the backfield against the Patriots. It felt like a bit of an anomaly, but maybe it's not. Maybe I'm wrong here. I don't know. I think I want to see it for one more week, but
looks good.
He could be maybe a thing down the stretch. Naeem Hines got involved. Singletary was great. But yeah, it was James Cook pretty early in that game. He did look good against the Patriots.
What about Mac Jones cussing out Patricia? What do you think about that?
Go figure, right? Go figure you hire Matt Patricia, a failed coach who is a defensive guy as your offensive coordinator, and your offense struggles. Color me so shocked. Color me so shocked.
Color me shocked.
Ridiculous, man.
All right.
Ridiculous.
Good show. Appreciate everybody tapping in. Like I said, check out Destination Dynasty, the final episode in Scott Connor's roster construction series. Check out that. You'll probably have to replay the additional 6-7 episodes that he dropped. Make sure you're tapped into the channel. Tomorrow, we got Troy and LQ. They're going to do a show tomorrow night. We got Monday Night Football tonight. Check out our show on the Mojo channel. Join the Discord, patreon.com/allgas. Use that promo code WAKEUP to get you 15% off that Miscela Doro coffee. Use the same promo code WAKEUP to get you $100 on Prize Picks. Jay, good show. Good Monday. We'll be back. Trades on Wednesday. Join the Discord. Y'all got $7 a month. You just got paid. It's December. It's early December. Come join. Get those trades in the trade channel. We'll do the trade show on Wednesday. And we have some fun on Friday talking about the Heisman because I believe that ceremony is this weekend. We know it's going to be Friday, Caleb Williams. It's going to be Caleb. Let's just pull it up. He's going to win it again. But appreciate y'all tapping in. We are out. Have a good one. Peace. Thank y'all for watching the Wake Up Show with myself and Jay Rich. If you finished the show and you're still hanging around and have yet to hit the thumbs up button or subscribe to the channel, do that right now and turn them alerts on while you're at it. If you want more exclusive access to me, Jay Rich, the entire Destination Devy team, patreon.com/allgas gives you that access. Make sure you subscribe to the newsletter for free 99 content. And if you want to get in on that action, use the promo code WAKEUP over on PrizePicks for a 100% deposit match up to $100 for first-time users, and a brand new show dropping on the Mojo YouTube channel. Myself and Jay Rich will be talking about these players and their value from a stock market perspective every single week this fall over on Mojo. It's all gas all the time. Love y'all. I'm out of this thing. Peace.